Chapter 28. When I woke up again, the smell of bacon and waffles filled the room, and I smiled, stretching as I moved to sit up. "Good morning." Gabriel cooed, resting a tray of breakfast for me on the bed. I left. "Good morning," I replied, reaching out to him to give him a hug. I pressed a kiss on his cheek as I moved away to sit down. "I hope you like waffles," he sang playfully, jumping onto the bed next to me and pulling us back to sit against the headboard. He was being really sweet this morning, and I was eating it up. The mark I now bore had only intensified my feelings for him. I hadn't thought it was possible, but then again 6 months ago I didn't think werewolves were possible, so I shouldn't have been surprised. "Idiot," I laughed, shoving him lightly and then quickly pulling him back towards me. I didn't want him to actually move. "You know I love them." "Yeah." Gabe laughed right back, wrapping his left arm around me and pressing a smacking kiss to the top of my head. "Oh my gosh. I love you." I was giggling at his goofy behavior uncontrollably. He had marked me last night, and every moment together since had been seeing more and more of his true, authentic self that he had been hesitant to share before. We ate our meal in a giggly sort of happiness before I decided we needed to have some real conversations to get me clued in on everything that was going on in his life. "Gabriel." Scooting so I was sitting cross in front of him. He frowned and grabbed for my ankle, yanking one of my legs so it rested against his. "What is it?" "Sweetheart," he replied. Then he huffed. "Why did you move so far away?" "Oh, quit whining. I want to look at you while I'm talking to you," I told him. He nodded his head as if my answer was acceptable. "All right, fine. What were you asking?" I love you. I love every part of you that you have let me see. I know that I will love every part of you that you continue to reveal to me. I guess I'm just. How come you are so goofy with me now? But when we first met you were bossy, possessive, and arrogant. I winced when I realized how harsh I sounded, but I was curious. Wow, he breathed out deeply. I laughed nervously, anxiously wringing my hands together. "Well, I love you too. I guess when I first met you, a lot of what I was feeling was shock. I wasn't expecting to meet my mate when I did. There's a civil war brewing. I'm caught in the middle and, honestly, I was thinking that you wouldn't survive if I didn't immediately mark you and keep you by my side. I know I came off as arrogant, but that's just because I try." Gabriel paused and I felt my heart beat painfully at the sight of the pain in his eyes. "Take your time," I whispered softly, reaching out to hold his hand between both of mine. He shot me a grateful smile and to compose himself. I didn't think I was ready to be alpha when I got the title. I wasn't expecting to have to decide to go against 𝐊𝐢𝐬𝐻 wishes to keep my people safe, and I didn't think that I'd have to navigate such a tense political climate. I guess I look arrogant because I have absolutely no idea what I am doing, and I can't let people know that. I am the alpha. I watched my dad with the title my entire life. He was always so strong and sure of himself. I have to be someone that people can rely on, and so I have to be tough and strong and bossy and overconfident because I don't want anyone to worry about their safety while I'm in charge, he revealed. I nodded. It made complete sense. I lifted his hand to my lips and pressed gentle kisses to his knuckles. I unfurled his fingers and pressed a kiss to his palm and looked up into his eyes. "You don't have to act tougher than you feel with me. Let me take care of you. Gabe, I want to take care of you," I whispered against his palm. His eyes were full of tears still unshed as they met my own. I crawled forward and knelt in front of him so that our heads were equal before I laid his head on my chest and held him. "I don't deserve you," Gabriel said, cuddling in. I ran my fingers through his hair and tugged lightly in warning. "Well, do you want me to go and find someone who you think does?" I asked him. He growled and pulled his head up to look me in the eyes. "No one deserves you, and no one will have you except for me," he stated fiercely. I laughed, mushing his cheeks together to exaggerate the grumpy expression on his face. If he chanced me to frown, I started singing. He glowered as much as he could while I still held his face tightly. "What are you doing?" he demanded. I ignored him. "Do not let it stay." I paused dramatically and smiled my wildest smile. His eyes grew wide in fear. Turn that frown right upside down and smile that frown away. I yelled the last part, forcing the corners of his mouth up into a smile. I watched as the smile became real before he tackled me backward on the bed. Where on earth did you learn that? He demanded, hovering above me. I was still giggling. My dad used to sing it to me when I would throw tantrums as a little kid. He could get me to smile every time. I confided, smiling at the memory. That's very special. Viola, he said softly, turning us on our sides to face each other. I know. I hummed back. I would have been content to lie in bed with him all day. But I glanced at the clock and gasped, leaping out of bed. We have to get ready for the day. It's almost 11 o'clock, and if you need to be back to the pack by tonight, then you must have a flight pretty soon. I exclaimed. I tried to ignore the bitter pull on my heart when I remembered that he was going to have to leave me here. I ushered him into my bathroom and slammed the door on him when he tried to tell me he didn't need a shower. Then, I hurried and took a quick shower of my own, throwing my hair in a towel hat and pulling on a chunky sweater and some jeans. That's a nice outfit. My mom complimented when I walked into the living room. Thanks, I replied, giving her a light smile. I did a double take when I noticed the look she was giving me from her perch on one of the sofas. What? I took a seat across from her and pulled a velvet decorative pillow from behind my back so I could sit more comfortably. Do you know that Gabriel is going back home today? She asked me. I tried to keep my smile in place and squeezed the pillow tightly to express my frustration. He has a lot of things to take care of. He can't be gone for more than a day or so at a time, I explained. She nodded. I just figured you would be going back with him, Mum said. My eyes widened. I sat up straight. I thought you wanted me to stay here for the whole 3 weeks. I asked her slowly, not wanting to get too excited in case I was misunderstanding her. That was before you were engaged. That was before I saw how you two look at each other. Honey, as much as I wish it was, your place isn't here with me anymore. You two belong together now, she explained softly, her eyes bright and shiny. I was blushing, but I had a big smile on my face. I'm going to go find Gabriel and tell him. To my 𝐿𝐷𝐷𝐸 𝐷𝐸 𝐿𝐷𝐸. Feeling giddy. Thanks, Mum. You're welcome. Turn, she called after me as I idly stood and made for the exit. I turned back around and sat on the sofa next to her, pulling her into a hug. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Something told me I wouldn't be seeing her after this for a while. I have always loved my mum, despite all our differences. I love you too. To my 𝐿𝐷𝐷𝐸 𝐷𝐸. Kissing her cheek and then jumping up and out of the room in search of my big bad werewolf. I turned the corner to go up the stairs and crashed into someone. I almost went sailing to the ground if it wasn't for their quick reflexes. I was pulled very firmly against a certain someone's chest. Hello. Smiling up at my fiancé, he smiled back down at me, pecking me on my lips. Is right, he said, not ILY. I giggled and wrapped my arms around his neck, jumping up and wrapping my legs around his waist like a monkey. You are awfully chipper. I have a question for you, I informed him. And what is your question? Is there a way you can get an extra ticket for the flight back? Gabe's jaw went slack. Then he was jumping and whooping and laughing and peppering me with kisses. You're coming home with me. Looking into my eyes and panting, I bit my lip with a smile still painted wide and nodded. It's where I belong, I said quietly. He pressed his lips to mine quickly, pulling away to smile at me again. This has been the best 2 days of my entire life, he informed me. I let go of him so that I could cuddle into his chest from a standing position instead. Same here, I retorted, nuzzling in. We stayed wrapped up in each other for 5 minutes before our doorbell rang. Can you get that, Viola? My stepdad shouted from his office, pulling out of my comfy spot and dragging Gabriel with me. On the short walk I took the time to appreciate how handsome he looked with his dark hair still damp and hanging on his forehead. His dark green shirt was clinging to his ABS and brought out the depth in his eyes. I wouldn't let my eyes go lower than his shirt because I couldn't trust myself to check out his butt if the top half looked so good. Hello. Yanking the door open, my jaw dropped when I saw who was on the other side. Chapter 29 Viola. Reaching a hand out for me to shake. I was still staring at him. 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐼𝐴 𝐊𝐢𝐳 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. I hadn't even finished saying the name before I felt Gabriel towering over the both of us from behind me, his arm curving gently around my waist to sit on my hip. I comfortably leaned into him to calm him down. What are you doing here? Still staring. He had grown up a lot since high school. His hair wasn't sandy blonde anymore. It was a dirty blonde brown color that suited him much better. He was definitely in really good shape physically. I was completely shocked. He looked so much more put together than he had when I had last seen him. Your stepfather asked me to come by for lunch, Paul explained, glancing up at Gabriel and then back at me. Oh, well then I guess come on in. Sorry. I didn't realize we were having company. I apologized, threading my fingers through Gabriel's and stepping out of the way for Paul to enter. I thought you knew. I would have reached out. But I know you changed your number before you moved out west a couple of months ago. He explained. That's fine. I felt a rumbling in Gabriel's chest and I knew his wolf was unhappy with an unknown male being friendly towards his mate. I loved how in we were with each other. I turned my head slightly to look up at my tall mate, hopping up on tiptoe to press a kiss to his jaw. This is Gabriel, I said to Paul when I noticed the distasteful way he was eyeing my mate. Something deep and wild in me didn't like the way he was judging my man. My fiancé. I watched Paul's eyes grow huge and he hesitated to shake the hand that Gabriel had graciously extended after the introduction. Well, that must have been really fast. You've only been gone for 4 months, Paul exclaimed, trying to play it off. Oh, I knew he had offended Gabe's wolf and I wished desperately that someone else would appear, but I knew my mom was in the dining room and my stepdad was still in his office. When you know, then you know, Gabriel said, cuddling me back against him. Both his arms were wrapped securely around me, and I was holding onto them with my own arms. Isn't that right, sweetheart? Oh, for sure. I've never loved anyone the way I love Gabe, I replied truthfully. I tried to ignore the way Paul's face turned bitter at that. Probably not the best thing to say in front of an ex, but it's the truth. That just seems highly unlikely, Paul started. I saw his eyes glance up at Gabriel, who was the largest man I had ever met and easily towered over my ex. But congratulations to the two of you. Let's go get some lunch, I said quickly, ending the small talk. This meal would not go well. I led the way down the hall with Gabriel clutching my hand tightly. I needed to be alone with him to calm him down but couldn't do that until I had dropped Paul off in the dining room. Mom, look who came to lunch, I announced stiffly. Walking in, I was glaring at her pointedly and she looked startled to see who it was. She shot me an apology and a look and then wiped her expression polished. Hello. To my agent extraordinaire, 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing enthusiasm. Welcome, she greeted. Paul smiled at her and walked over to shake her hand. I took the opportunity to drag Gabriel out of the room, down the hall, and into a service closet that no one ever used. It was the size of a large pantry, so there was plenty of room for us. I shut the door, turned on the light, and then was immediately greeted by a pair of lips on mine. I staggered backward in surprise, but he caught me from falling. One arm wound around my waist and keeping me pressed firmly against him, and the other hand cut my jaw, guiding my lips to meet his possessive and branding kiss. I melted against him, kissing him back with all the love I had in me. His lips trailed down my neck and I was a moaning mess as they left. No doubt, a fleet of love bites moving toward my mark. When his lips connected with it, I felt my whole body come alive. The moan that escaped me was so loud, I almost snapped out of it in embarrassment. He swallowed the tail end of my own with another kiss, eventually slowing down to just a couple of pecks. Mine, he was whispering between kisses. It was true, I was his completely. Yours, I replied, reassuring him. I cupped his face in my own hands and pried him away from me so that I could look in his eyes. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐸𝐬 𝐂𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐬, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, 𝐂𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐬. He begged. I knew what he meant. Paul and I dated my senior year of high school. He tried to get back together with me over the summer, but I wasn't interested. My stepdad, 𝐊𝐴𝐳𝐸𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, 𝐂𝐵𝐻𝐻𝐬. Always liked him. Probably because Paul is a kiss-up. I hate men who are kiss-ups though, so I dumped him when I noticed. There is nothing to worry about. Gabe, I love you so much. There is no one that even comes close. I told him. I don't like him, Gabriel stated. I smiled. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐸𝐬. I know you don't. Can we just get through this lunch and then we can fly back home? Okay, he agreed. Besides, I am planning on bragging about you during the whole lunch. He was kind of a jerk when we were dating and thought I couldn't do any better than him. I did so much better, and I want to rub it in his face. I said snark 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐸𝐬. Gabe laughed, pressing a kiss to my forehead. Sounds good. He paused and then blushed, avoiding eye contact. I left some �K𝐼𝐳 on your neck. Good. It shows that my man can satisfy me. I grinned, grabbing his hand and tugging him out of the closet. Who are you? I laughed happily. So, Gabriel, what are you studying? Paul asked. 𝐊𝐴𝐳𝐸𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, 𝐿𝐢𝐳𝐬. I've been out of college for a while now. I studied business management finance. I currently own a number of businesses, Gabriel answered, digging into his flatbread sandwich. Paul looked shocked and I decided to add to it. I had scooted my chair right next to Gabe's and I was practically folding over him the whole meal. To his credit, he was just as much wrapped up in me. I didn't even have to tell a single lie. I just mentioned all of the things that he usually kept on the down low. He is also a super influential member of his community. Everyone out there really looks up to him. 𝐊𝐴𝐳𝐸𝐬𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, 𝐿𝐢𝐳𝐬𝐬. In genuine admiration of my alpha. Oh, how I loved him. Wow, that's great, Paul mumbled. I hummed in agreement. The rest of the meal followed in a similar fashion. Are you ready? Gabe asked, carrying my last suitcase out to the car. Yeah. 𝐊𝐴𝐳𝐸𝐬𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, 𝐿𝐢𝐳𝐬𝐬. I was trying to take in that this may be my last time in the house, but it didn't bother me. It hadn't been my home. My home was when my father lived and loved. My new home was Gabriel. Are you okay? His thick eyebrows pulling together and a slight pout formed on his plump lips. I sighed again and put my arms around his waist, pressing my cheek to his chest. It's just a building. It's okay to need to take some time to process your emotions. Viola, it's alright to be feeling overwhelmed or conflicted. You are valid, Gabriel whispered. I felt my mood lighten. Did you read my psychology notes? I asked him, not looking up at him from my position. Almost word for word came what I had learned about responses to someone feeling strong emotions from out of his mouth. I felt his strong chest trembled with amusement. Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't, he replied. I laughed, wiping a traitorous stare onto his shirt. Do you need to go say goodbye to your mom? Still holding me, I felt loved, protected, and safe in that spot. It was my favorite place on earth. She's at a book club meeting. I said goodbye before she left. I told him, and thank goodness I had gotten that over with before I decided to feel all sorts of mixed emotions. Then should we go? Resting his cheek on the crown of my head, I took a deep breath of him. Sandalwood. Yummy. I guess so. 𝐊𝐴𝐳𝐸𝐬𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, 𝐿𝐢𝐳𝐬𝐬. Still not moving, he let out a little laugh and scooped me up, carrying me out of the house. Goodbye. Viola's mom's house. He called as he strut away with purpose towards Martin and the waiting car to take us to the airport. Chapter 30. Have you gotten any new leads? I asked Gabriel, interrupting the silence of our car ride back to his house. What? He looked at me in confusion. I smiled at the way his brown eyes glowed with the sunlight, before shaking my head and focusing. You know, Civil War, traitorous back members. I trailed off. Oh, he exclaimed, sobering up. We know that one of the leaders is a man named Garrett. We know all the members as well. We just have to figure out how to resolve this peacefully. Does Garrett have a mate? I asked curiously. I believe so. Gabriel replied. Why no reason? Just curious. I explained. I slid my hand over his that was resting between us. I relished in the sparks and took a deep breath in, closing my eyes. Mint and pine. I would always love his scent. We're only about 30 minutes away now, Gabriel informed me. I nodded. Hey, I sat up straight in my seat and turned to look at Gabe. What? What's wrong? His eyes lightening. I knew that he was partially shifting to sense danger and I tried to calm him down. Nothing. I just remembered that you had told me once that you built your house. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐝, 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐝, 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐝. Looking over at him curiously, the beams of setting sunlight streamed through the window, making his dark hair glow, his strong nose and jaw perfectly sculpted. I wouldn't ever be used to how handsome he was. He answered simply. I smacked his arm and he let out a short bark of laughter. Liar, that house is humongous. How on earth did you build that? I demanded, aching to learn everything I could about my mate. I started building it when I turned 17 and it took me almost 5 years to finish it. I wanted to have a home that my mate and I could live happily in. Raise a family there. And I didn't really want to always be living in the pack house. I love my pack, but it's definitely hard to feel love at 𝐿𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐝, he explained shyly. I blushed as well. I love it. I love it even more now that I know why you built it. You big ol' softy. He laughed with me as we continued our drive. Oh my gosh. Sean. Gabriel glanced over at me again. Well, you're just remembering everything right now, aren't you? Very funny. Seriously. What happened to him? I didn't see him on the flight home. The cool guy would be stuck in Indiana for a little longer. I sent him home as soon as I learned that you were returning with me. There was an earlier flight, and no need for him to protect you while I was around, Gabriel explained. I let out a sigh of relief. I like that guy. He isn't a talker, but he sure was good at protecting me. I commented. You only like me, Gabriel grunted. I rolled my eyes. No, I only love you. I can have guy friends. I snorted. I kicked my feet up on the dash of his car and he ignored them. Fine, he consented. How is your grandmother? Gabriel asked after another stretch of quiet. She's fading, I replied sadly. I felt tears forming and I swallowed thickly. It was hard to think about someone I loved so much going through so much pain. I'm sorry about that, Gabriel whispered, his hand squeezing mine tightly as we pulled off the highway and began the winding stretch up into the mountains. There's nothing anyone can do. I'm actually dealing with this all better than I thought I would. I know that she loves us all here, but I also believe in an afterlife. And I know that she's been missing Grandpa these last few years, so I am happy that she will get to be with him again. I had always felt inspired by my grandparents' love for each other. Every Sunday my grandpa up early to pick a flower from their garden for my grandpa. They went on walks every morning before he had to go to work. They raised 5 children together and came out the other side even more in love. That love is powerful. That is the love of legends. And it's the kind of love that I know I have with my werewolf. I love you, I said suddenly. Gabriel raised our joined hands up to his lips to press a kiss to the back of mine. I love you too, he said reverently. I smiled as warmth filled my chest. I loved him. I loved him. I loved him. Viola. I heard a voice shout before a body slammed into my back. I was laughing, but the body was immediately ripped off of me as a large one stood protectively in front of me. "Jake," Gabe growled threateningly, stepping out from behind my big bad wolf. "I missed you," I exclaimed, reaching for a hug. Gabriel pulled me back into his chest. "No hugging other males," he rumbled deeply. Glaring at him. "I do what I want," I protested. "Let him be a caveman." A new voice joined our party. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐻 𝐬𝐷𝐼𝐻 Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐼𝐻. "I missed you." Stepping towards him to give him a hug. He dodged as an arm swung around my body and yanked me back. Gabriel was fine while we were alone, but as soon as his friends showed up, he wouldn't stop touching me. Wouldn't let me leave his side. "Stop it." "It did nothing. That won't work. Viola, I see you're marked now," Joel observed with a cheeky grin. I flushed a deep red color. Maybe," I responded. He laughed. "When our mates are freshly marked, the inner wolf feels extra possessive and protective. He's going to need a day or two to adjust back to normal. The price we pay for love." Sighing dramatically and fluttering his eyelashes. "Oh, shut up." Gabriel finally spoke up, nuzzling my mark. I felt my breathing hitch and his smile against my skin. He was doing it on purpose. "How was your Christmas?" I asked the set of brothers, trying to keep my mind off of the man who was practically eating me alive in a very public setting. "It was really good. We finally got a new air pump, so we spent most of the day inflating all of the balls in our house that were deflated or not inflated at all. We have so many soccer balls," Chuck observed with amazement. I laughed. The image of a normal family Christmas made me hopeful that someday Gabriel and I might have that with our children. "That's fantastic." I grinned, and we played darts and Jake shot me in the back. Joel tattled. I snickered, knowing that his werewolf healing and strength would have made it very difficult to actually seriously injure him in such a mundane way. "I didn't mean to." Jake pouted, looking guilty. I gasped as Gabe's tongue licked my mark suddenly. Joel and Jake looked at me. "Oh, just." It was a very dramatic story. I tried to explain myself without exposing myself, and from the smirks on their faces, I was guessing it hadn't worked as well as I had hoped. "I'm going to take my mate home now," Gabe announced, finally emerging from my neck. I breathed a sigh of relief. "Unless there is anything else you two need to tell me. Just that since Viola is marked and officially the Luna, there should be some type of welcoming ceremony or something. I know you two are getting married, but we need to have something ASAP here so that everyone knows who she is and what authority she has. That way no one messes with her," Joel informed him. I nodded along. It made sense. And honestly, I was down for anything. I wanted to know more about their culture and customs. After dating Gabriel for a few months now, I thought we know more about him than I do. I don't think he was purposefully hiding anything, but he doesn't share unless he feels it is necessary, and I am curious by nature. I like to learn. "That sounds cool," I exclaimed brightly, grabbing Gabriel's hand in mine and tugging him towards his home. "We'll look into the details later. Good night." 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐻 Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐊𝐢𝐧𝐼𝐻. Gabriel called to his friends. He suddenly whooshed me into his arms and jogged towards his house, clinging onto him tightly. "I'm carrying you over the threshold." I laughed and pinched his nose lightly. "That only works when we are married," I informed him. His response was the same as the last time. "I'm practicing." Gabe laughed. "Can we go talk to my parents?" Gabe asked, rolling on top of me in the morning. Setting my phone aside. "Right now," I hummed, wrapping my arms around his neck. His eyes dark, and I knew he was turned on. I was too sleepy to care, and I had ulterior motives. "It doesn't have to be right this minute. There are other things we could do," he hinted, smiling wolfish lie. I smiled right back. Leaning up, I pressed a quick kiss to his cheek, stealthily dodging his lips, and rolled out of bed. hopping towards the bathroom. Good plan. I need to take a shower and get some fresh clothes on before we go over and announce our engagement. I grinned innocently. He groaned, flopping onto his back and laying his arm over his eyes. He muttered, "Sorry, I didn't get that," I called teasingly. He snorted. "No doubt," Gabe replied, slightly annoyed. I just giggled and hopped into the shower. "So, what's the game plan?" Rubbing my hands together as we pulled up in front of his parents' house. "What do you mean? How are we telling them? What are we gonna say?" I elaborated. "How about, 'Hey, we're engaged'?" I mocked her. "Yeah, I guess that works," I said shakily. "Are you nervous?" Gabriel asked, wrapping his arms around me and turning me to face him. I leaned back from my waist, looking up at him shyly. "A little bit. Last time I met them you were worried they might hate me. I'm just a little nervous about telling them to be their daughter-in-law," I explained. Wringing my hands together, Gabriel let out a booming laugh, causing me to jump and then stare at him in surprise. "Why are you laughing?" I demanded. "Well, in my world, when the parents are first introduced to the mate is when they have to come to terms with the child-in-law. Mates are forever. Permanent. No take-backs kind of deal. A werewolf would be crazy to reject their mate. It doesn't happen. They knew last time that you were the only girl in the world for me," he explained softly, looking at me with such tenderness my heart ached. I blushed, averting my eyes for a moment. "I love you," I whispered, finally looking back up at him. He melted against me, holding me delicately. "You're my whole world, sweetheart," he replied. I blushed deeper red and leaned up to kiss him gently. "To my agent extraordinaire, 𝐿𝐤𝐬𝐷𝐸, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Let's go knock this out. To my agent extraordinaire, 𝐿𝐤𝐬𝐷𝐸, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm." Reclaiming myself, he laughed, throwing an arm over my shoulder and steering me up to the front door. We knocked and stood back. I was bouncing on my toes with excitement. I hadn't gotten to tell anyone yet, I wanted to show off that I would get to keep my gorgeous hunk all to myself for the rest of forever. "Viola, Gabriel, this is a surprise," his mum exclaimed as she opened the door. I smiled brightly at her in greeting. "Hopefully a welcome one," Gabriel teased her. She laughed. "Viola is a welcome one. The jury is still out on you, mister. Oh, she got you." I laughed, high-fiving her. Gabriel rolled his eyes, but he couldn't hide the happy smile on his face. "So, how come the two of you stopped by?" Looking at us expectantly. "We're engaged," and I mocked her, Gabriel said bluntly. His mum froze, her features slowly morphing to shock before she screamed loudly. I winced, and I felt Gabriel reach to cover his ears. Suddenly there was a bang from inside the house, and in the next second Mr. O'Connor popped up, shielding his wife from us. When he registered who was at the door, he looked at Mrs. O'Connor in confusion. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," she cheered, stepping out from behind him and giving Gabriel a tight. O'Connor glanced at me for help. "We're engaged," and Gabriel mocked me. I informed him. His own eyes grew wide before he reached out a hand for me to shake. "Congratulations. You too," he boomed. I shook his hand firmly. "Thank you," I replied, still grinning from ear to ear. The smile was permanently adhered to my face. "Well, come in. We'll eat lunch together and talk wedding details, Mrs. O'Connor said, throwing the door open wider and yanking her husband inside with her. "That sounds wonderful," I accepted, grabbing Gabriel's hand and making my way inside their home. I slipped off my shoes at the door and Gabriel rolled his eyes before doing the same. "You don't have to take your shoes off in here," he informed me. I flicked his arm. "It helps keep the carpets cleaner for longer. Shoes will not be allowed on the carpets when we start living together either," I replied, warning in my voice. "What?" Why, he winced. I tried to keep the stern expression on my face, but he looked so funny. Because I just explained it to you. I don't want to spend a long time vacuuming every week. I reiterated. You don't even need to vacuum or clean anything. We have pack members who can do that. Gabriel argued. I would like to clean our home myself. I informed him, flushing slightly as I called it our home. Well, then your wish is my command, Gabe finally said, tugging me to a halt and wrapping his arms around my waist. We were staring into each other's eyes and I found myself praying silently that it would always feel like this. That we would always be so in love and happy to be near each other. Your eyes are so pretty, I found myself mumbling. His ears turned pink and I was fascinated by the way his eyes shifted color slightly. Your eyes are beautiful, he replied, trying to minimize my compliment. I'm not kidding. Gabe, you are the most handsome man I've met in my entire life, I said in awe. One of my hands was lightly combing through his hair. Hey lovebirds, a shout from the kitchen startled us apart. I looked back up at Gabriel for a brief moment to see him already smiling softly down at me. Coming, he called back, taking my hand and leading me there. Chapter 31. What time do you think you could drop me off at my own apartment? I asked Gabe from where I was laying on top of him. I was using an arm to prop myself up so that I would be able to see him more clearly. Do you have to go back? You weren't even supposed to be in Utah at all right now. What could you possibly need to do there? 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐳 𝐬𝐻𝐿 Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience and enthusiasm. Trying to reason with me. Pressing a light kiss to his lips. Well, for one, I think I'm too big of a distraction for you here. You haven't had hardly any progress with the Civil War situation since I've been here. He opened his mouth to protest, but I cut him off again. And for two, I can pick up some shifts at the diner and get ahead on some schoolwork. Plus, I'd love to meet more people in your pack, but I can't do that until I get some other things done. Gabriel sighed, nodding his head. I guess that makes sense. I laughed, climbing off of him. It doesn't mean I'm happy about it though, he informed me. I shrugged my shoulders as I sashayed into the bathroom to get ready for the day. I looked at myself in the mirror, smiling. I looked truly and genuinely happy for the first time in a long time. The bags under my eyes weren't so pronounced. My face was flushed with color, and my hair was, although oily, manageable and looked after. I felt good about myself. I knew that it had to do with how far I had come on my personal mental journey these last few months. I had finally found ways to keep myself happy. I saw Gabriel's reflection approach me from behind and I leaned into his chest as his arms came around my stomach and held me close. What are you thinking about? Swaying us lightly from side to side. I closed my eyes and felt a soft smile bloom on my face. How much my life has changed over these last few months. How much I have changed. In a good way. Almost nervously, I turned in his arms, opening my eyes to meet his own. In the best way, I assured him. Once I got home, I called Marie at the cafe. Viola. Hey Marie. I'm back in town now and I was wondering if you needed any shifts picked up. I sat down at my desk chair and spun around while I talked. That's so sweet of you, she gushed. I laughed, imagining the look on her face so. Tapping a pen against my thigh nervously, I had my planner open and I was ready to fill out my schedule. Actually, we are closed for the holidays. We thought it would be a nice break for everyone, and we had a really good year, she explained. I was disappointed. Okay, let me know when you guys open up again. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐸 𝐬𝐻𝐿 Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience and enthusiasm. I will. Sweet girl, how was your time in Indiana? Conversationally, I blushed before I answered. I got engaged, I informed her. Oh, that's amazing. I'm so happy for you, she complimented. Thanks. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐸 Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience and enthusiasm. I should let you go. Happy holidays. You too, honey, Marie replied before I ended the call. I flopped onto my bed to think. I couldn't stop thinking about the situation in Gabriel's pack. It was bothering me that I hadn't been able to connect with any of the pack members either. I knew how important they all were to Gabriel, and I knew that one day I was supposed to lead by his side. I didn't feel comfortable being responsible for a group of people I knew nothing about. I decided to reach out to one of the few friends I had in his pack. I sat up, leaning against my headboard. Hello. Hey, Caroline. 𝐿𝐻𝐷𝐞𝐬𝐭, 𝐻𝐷𝐞𝐬𝐭. A little nervous about talking to my future mother, in-law without her son present, Viola. I'm so glad you called. How are you doing? She asked kindly. I sighed in relief that she was still the same happy person when it was just the two of us. I'm doing all right. I was actually calling to ask a favor. Well, I can't make any promises, but I will see what I can do. She chirped. I was internally gushing about how sweet she was. No wonder Gabe was so kind and thoughtful. He had an angel raising him. I haven't been able to meet very many women in the pack. I was hoping to have a luncheon or a brunch with some ladies so that I can get to know them. Would you be able to help me set something like that up? I asked her hopefully. That is a wonderful idea. We haven't to get together in such a long time. I can definitely spread the word to the women who live in town. How many would you like to have? As many as are able to come. I would just love to get to know them and let them get to know me. I'm sure not all of them are fully comfortable with the idea of a stranger being mated to their alpha. So I thought it might be good for all of us. I explained bashfully. She gasped, sounded pleased. That is so amazing. I'm so excited. When are you thinking? Caroline wanted to know. Well, it will probably take 2 days for me to figure out a caterer and a venue. So how does Monday for brunch sound? I asked her. That's perfect. I guess that's everything. Oh my goodness. I interrupted, smacking myself in the forehead. What? Are you all right? Caroline worried. I'm fine. I just realized that if all the women are invited to the brunch, many of them won't be able to come because they are providing childcare. I groaned, frustrated with the flaw to my plan. We could hire someone, she suggested. I shook my head. No, that's asking them to trust our decision to hire someone that will take care of their kids, and I feel like we can't ask them to do that. I hopped out of bed and moved to my desk chair, swinging around until I was facing my laptop. I opened it up and typed a few things into the search bar. What are you doing? She asked curiously. I'm looking up ideas on Pinterest. I admitted, laughing lightly. She laughed with me. Pinterest has so many great ideas. I don't blame you. I was really digging Caroline and my vibe this evening. This one sounds good. 𝐿𝐻𝐷𝐞𝐬𝐭, 𝐿𝐻𝐷𝐞𝐬𝐭. Smiling widely, I felt really good about it. What? We can have a dad-kids carnival. The dads can come up with some sort of stall or activity to run together, and they can all take shifts walking around and participating in all of the different activities. That way there is still a parent present with the kids, and everyone gets to have a fun day. I love it. She squealed. We can have that in the gym at the pack house. There's a gym in the pack house. I wondered aloud. Holy cow. It's essentially a rec center with rooms for people to live in as well. The front is the home of the Beta family, and the back is the area for the community, she explained. I nodded along. That was really smart. And a super cool idea. Perfect. Is there another big room that's slightly fancier? We could have our brunch in the pack house too. That way no one has to worry about transportation. I thought aloud. We have a ballroom. It hasn't been used since my wedding, so we may have to clean it up, but it will be perfect, she gushed. I was getting super excited about this. How about you come over right now? And we can knock out the rest of the planning. I'd invite Sarah over and we can design some sort of flyer to hand out to the people who live in town, as well as one we can email out to the ladies who live a little further away. They might feel a little left out if we don't invite them, since we're making such an event out of this. 𝐿𝐻𝐷𝐞𝐬𝐭, heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Let me just change into some nicer clothes, and I'll be right over, I exclaimed, standing and opening my drawer to pull out some jeans and a nice sweater. I can send Gabriel to get you, she suggested happily now. The silence was tense before I clarified. I would love to see him, but we've been spending so much time together he hasn't been spending as much time on the pack issues that he's been trying to figure out, and I would hate to distract him again. You are definitely meant to be the Luna, Caroline said softly. I could hear the emotion in her voice as I switched her over to speaker so I could change while we talked. That means a lot, especially coming from you, I admitted humbly. I knew Caroline must have been an amazing Luna, and to have earned her respect made me feel more confident in my ability to care for these people. Oh, hon, you are going to make me get emotional. I'm going to let you go so you can drive over here safely, and I'll call Sarah so she can get over here too, Caroline explained before she hung up. I wiped my eyes with the sleeve of my fluffy grey sweater before I grabbed my keys, shoved my laptop into a big purse, grabbed some charger cords, and walked out of my apartment. Come in, I heard Caroline yell when I knocked on the front door. I took a deep breath before I walked inside their beautiful home again. We've set up shop in the kitchen. I walked into the kitchen and smiled when I saw Caroline and Sarah with what looked like thousands of dollars worth of scrapbooking supplies spread across it. Their cheeks were flushed and they were both looking at me with excitement. What are you ladies working on? Walking closer to take a peek at the table, I felt my eyes grow wide when I saw what was sitting in front of them. Individually crafted and personalized homemade invitations to the brunch daddy. Fun, they were laying on the table. Each one was clearly labeled and addressed to a specific woman or family. There were ribbons, bows, glitter, foamy letters, stickers, jewels, you name it. They were totally blinded out and absolutely amazing. Holy, I muttered, shocked. Do you like them? Sarah asked eagerly, looking up at me. I blinked to form words. I love them. How on earth did you make so many of these so quickly? I asked them. We love to scrapbook, Caroline admitted. I snorted. I think that's an understatement. I teased her. She laughed, pulling out the chair in between the two of them. We need your help though. We still have to make sure we have everyone who lives in town included. And we need you to make an electronic copy to mail to everyone who doesn't live here, Caroline explained. I nodded, sitting down and opening up my laptop. Do you guys have a group emailing list set up for the pack? Opening a blank Google Doc to design the flyer on. A what? Sarah asked. I looked up, ceasing my typing. An email list. A quick way to communicate with everyone. I asked them, suddenly feeling worried. No. The alpha usually remind Link with any important updates. They informed me. I nodded along. That made sense for the way they had been running things. But I knew a far away not even being able to receive group communication on a regular basis would not help me feel like I was a part of the pack. That makes sense. I think it would be a good idea to set that up. Do you guys have a list of everyone's emails? I wondered, opening up a Gmail tab on my browser instead. I was met with silence, so I looked up at them. They were both grinning mischievously at me. We don't have that information, Caroline started. But Alpha does, Sarah finished, wiggling her eyebrows at me. I blushed, shaking my head at the two women. So you want me to go get it from him? I asked them, groaning. Caroline chuckled teasingly. I liked that woman, but boy was she a jokester. Well, we can't. We still have to finish making all these invitations, Sarah answered innocently. I shook my head. You two are cruel. I informed them, standing up dramatically. You'll thank us later, Sarah hollered as I walked back down the hall to the front door. He's in his office at the pack house, Caroline helpfully added, just before the door shut behind me. I chuckled while I walked down the road to the pack house. Those ladies were so good for each other and so good for me. It was nice to have more friends. Chapter the Tito Viola. I heard as soon as I opened the door to the pack house. I had found the public entrance. just to the side of the building. Much easier than walking through the Bater's family home. Josh. 𝐊𝐲𝐷𝐞𝐿 𝐊𝐢𝐳 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐵. Giving the kid a hug. I heard some more whistles and I rolled my eyes as I pulled away to inspect the group that Josh was hanging out with. Who are you guys? Looking at the 3 other boys. They all looked to be around 16 or 17 years old, varying heights and coloring, but I only needed one look to decide they were the heartthrobs of their high school. I can tell the type just by looking at them. This is Ag, Aid, and Cade. Josh introduced. The boys nodded as they were introduced. I repeated the names a few times in my head before I replied. 𝐊𝐲𝐷𝐞𝐿 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐵. And Viola. I'm Gabe's mate. I got cut off by the sound of them choking. You were checking out the Luna. Abe chided Zach. Zach punched Abe in the gut. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐻, and you guys were both checking her out too. Zach accused them. Josh. Turning to look at my friend. He looked away from his buddies arguing to focus on my question. Which way is Gabe's office? I need to talk to him for a little bit. I'll drop you off. We were on our way to go bug the Alpha anyway, weren't we, boys? Josh offered, finishing loudly to break up the argument between his friends. Oh yeah, Zach exclaimed, letting go of Abe's shirt and walking determinedly down a hallway. The group followed along behind him. So, when did you get marked? Luna, Zach asked conversationally as we followed him towards Gabriel's office. Cade hissed, elbowing Zach roughly. That's none of your business. It's all right. Thanks for looking out for me. He blushed and looked down. You're welcome, Luna. And, if you want to know, Zach, I'll tell you. It was the day after Christmas. I informed him. He made a gagging noise. Yuck. You got hot and heavy on Christmas. He looked repulsed. I couldn't help but laugh at him. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐵 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐵. Let's change the subject. Josh butt in. I squeezed his arm appreciatively. I wouldn't ever win against Zach. I could already tell. I could also already tell that held a strong affection for all of the boys. No need. We're at Alpha's office, Bob announced as we stopped. I noted the impressive door. There was a carving of a wolf on it, with the wood stained in imposingly dark color. The door alone would have scared me off if I didn't love the person who was inside of that door with all my heart. Zach knocked once, and then immediately shouted, 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐵 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐵. Open up. He sounded like a whiny toddler, and we all laughed at him. The door to the office opened and revealed a very bored and very tired-looking Gabriel. He took a deep breath in, and then his eyes immediately snapped to mine. I smiled at him, waggling my fingers. Teenage companions forgotten. Gabriel shoved past them and held me against his chest, breathing in deeply. I missed you, he whispered in my ear. I wrapped my arms around his neck. I missed you too. Pressing a kiss to his lips. Get it? Zach cheered. THWUNP, that's inappropriate. That was Cade. Thwack, have some chill. That was Abe. I pulled slightly away from Gabriel to turn around in his arms and face my new friends. Are you guys going to talk to Gabriel about what you needed to talk to him about? I asked them, smiling brightly as if I hadn't just slightly made out with the political leader in front of them. We were just going to bother him into playing basketball with us. Josh admitted. Yeah, but you guys clearly have other plans. So we'll just play without him, Zach complained. As if I made it harder. Now you guys have an even number for each team. I'll make him play with you some other time. Making a shoe. Go away, motion with my hands. We'll hold you to that. Luna, Abe called as the 4 of them ran off towards the gym. Mayuna. Gabriel growled lowly in my ear. I laughed, pulling on his arm so we could get inside his office. I'm yours. You're mine. We know. We know. Flicking the point of his nose, he wrinkled it back at me. I like those kids. Gabriel glowered at me again and I put both my hands on my hips. What? He demanded. We've been over this. I can like other people. I like you the most and I love you the most. So there's no need for you to feel worried. 𝐿𝐢𝐳𝐸𝐾𝐜𝐬 Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I tried to convince him, but he just ignored me. Well, if you're going to be a baby about this, I can't help you. Those guys are kids. And I feel some weird maternal instinct around them. Sort of. More like I'm a loving older sister. So don't get pissy. Gabriel just laughed, taking my hand and leading me to the left side of the large room. What did you come to see me for? Gabriel asked, sitting on a very impressive swivel desk chair and yanking me to sit on top of his lap. I used my hands gripping the big, white desk to drag us closer and observe the room before I decided to answer. It was a beautiful room. There were no windows, which was disappointing, but there was plenty of light. The navy blue accents on the walls with shiplap adorning the bottom 2/3 one wall made it feel much bigger than it was. It wasn't scary like I imagined his office might be. It was him. I'm sort of planning an event with your mom. I'm sorry. What? Stunned. I laughed and explained our idea to him. By the end, he was smiling at me fondly and I was smiling back with unbridled excitement. So why did you come here? It sounds like you've got this under control. Not that I am not thrilled about your being here. Gabriel reassured me when I mocked offense. I have some ideas that I feel like should be implemented into the pack. I admitted, feeling nervous. Okay. What are you thinking? Well, I was talking to Sarah, and your mom and they said that you guys don't have a way to send out mass communication other than a mind link. I asked to confirm the information. Gabriel nodded, looking confused. I was thinking that it would be a good idea to set up an email list with everyone in the pack. We can send out a regular newsletter type thing to keep people of outside the town. I think it might help them feel like they're part of the pack more. I informed him. That's a really good idea. He agreed. I can get you everyone's email if you would be willing to set it up and send out the first few. That's fine with me. I'd love to help out. I was also thinking. I paused, collecting my thoughts. I know you guys get together to have Thanksgiving for anyone who doesn't want to do a family Thanksgiving. But outside of that, there hasn't been a large community gathering in a really long time. I think that on top of it being fun, it also brings people together and shows them that you care about not just their safety, but also their happiness. I explained. How often are you thinking? Gabriel asked. At least every 6 months. You have to give people a chance to meet each other and to get to know you. Plus, those people who think you are unfit to be 𝐿𝐢, I have a feeling they will have a hard time convincing others to join their cause if everyone sees how caring and hardworking you are. I informed him. How are you so good at being a Luna already? Gabriel asked in wonderment, gazing at me lovingly. I blushed, feeling embarrassed. Caroline had already said something similar today, and I wasn't expecting to hear it again. And I wasn't used to receiving those kinds of compliments either. So the other, changing the subject. Gabriel threw his head back in laughter, making me smile. He opened a desk drawer and pulled out 3 huge binders. He dropped them on the desk with a thwack and pointed at them proudly. Every piece of information on every pack member is in those binders, listed alphabetically by last name and grouped into families to make it easier, he explained. My jaw dropped, but not in admiration as I suspected. He was hoping it would. You don't have any of these files digitalized. 𝐿𝐢𝐳𝐸𝐾𝐜𝐬 Heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. No, Gabe. This is a fire hazard. Be inconvenient, and see really easy to steal. All someone has to do is walk in your office and open the drawer and then boom. They have access to everyone's personal information. I chided him. I thought it was more efficient. he defended himself. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐲𝐻𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. I'm calling your mother, I announced, standing from his lap and walking to the couch that was against the back wall. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐲𝐻𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Why, Gabriel asked, looking worried. It wasn't like I was going to tattle on my 26-year-old fiancé. There was no need for him to panic. I don't think I'll be getting back to the crafting party as soon as I thought I would, I informed him, pressing the dial button. Hello. Hey, Caroline. I think I'm going to be staying here for a little while longer. I told her I knew it was a good idea to send her over there. I heard Sarah giddily reply, EW no. It's not like that. I'm reorganizing all of the records. It's going to take me a few hours at least. I explained myself. Dang. I heard Sarah curse in disappointment. Okay. That sounds great. Thanks for helping him out. Viola. It's not a problem. I love him, I reminded her, looking over at my mate. He was staring at me with a loving expression on his face, making me turn away immediately in shyness. I know you do. Goodbye. Before hanging up, how exactly are you planning on getting all of these sheets of paper on the computer? Gabriel asked me as if I knew nothing about technology. Do you have a scanner? I asked him. What? Great. I'll go ahead and take that as a no. I sighed deeply, frustrated at his disuse of technology, yet also grateful that I had something to contribute to his pack that would be ultimately helpful. So how are you going to do this? He asked again, looking intrigued. I'm going to create a private folder that only you, Joel, and I have access to and create a template document. I just make copies of that document and enter all of the different people's information on each document. I'm thinking I'll create subfolders for each household so each person can still have their own page. I can even order it the same as your binders are. I bragged. Gabriel looked impressed. Do you need any help? Reaching for his own laptop. You gotta focus on your job. 𝐊𝐢𝐳𝐷𝐞𝐲𝐻𝐬 heartfelt thanks for your unfailing patience, enthusiasm. Don't worry. I can do this. You can make sure everyone is safe. I'm here to make your load lighter. That's my end goal for today. So please don't create more work for yourself. He looked thoughtful as I said that, and I wondered what he was thinking about. But I figured if it was important he would say something. I opened the first binder and began reading the files. Grant and Lucy 𝐊𝐢𝐳 family. Email Grant and Lucy Gmail. Come phone to 108 Grant, 42𝐈O. TAC Warrior. Transfer from count in a SPAC 2017 Lucy L, 41𝐈O. Substitute teacher. Transfer from count in a SPAC 2017 Kennedy, deceased 19 at time of death. TAC Warrior. Died in 2017 Samuel, 18. Training Warrior High School student. Transfer from camp in a spec. My heart broke as I transferred their information to the document. I gasped as I looked at the picture that was on the bottom of the page. Lucy L was the woman who had helped me light the jewel pot on fire. I had a series of realizations all at once. Lucy 𝐊𝐢𝐳 was one of the names on the list of people attending the meeting. Her daughter had most likely died in the war that Gabriel had chosen to not send more fighters into. Her daughter was a brand new warrior. Definitely not seasoned. Lucy L was trying to avenge her daughter by making sure Gabriel couldn't cause something like that to happen to other families. And when I had realized all of that, my perspective on the entire civil war shifted. Sure, some of the people trying to take down my mate were corrupt. Some of them had ill intentions, but I suspected that a lot of the people that had joined the cause were hurting. They had lost family members and friends in a war that they didn't have a choice but to fight in it. It couldn't be denied that had Gabriel intervened, lists of their families and friends would have died. However, a power-hungry alpha would have benefited from the suffering of yet another pack, leading those people to destruction. There was no outcome when no one got hurt. It was impossible, but that didn't mean that those people couldn't mourn. It didn't mean they couldn't be upset.